Hello, and welcome to the North State Breakdown with Benjamin Noane. In this episode, I'm going to discuss the Shasta County General Unit strike. In the interest of full disclosure, I want to let my audience know that I'm currently a Staff Services Analyst 2 with the Health and Human Services Administration, and am a member of UPEC General Unit 792, which I will be discussing today. The union voted to declare an impasse in regards to negotiations for a new contract, which was announced as of February 6, 2023. This was after months of negotiations. The General Unit has been out of contract for 5 months. The county's position has remained firm with their offer of 7% over 3 years. The breakdown of wage increases that were offered is 2.5% for the first year, 2.5% for the second year, and 2% for the third year. In addition to this, there were some other equities, including a 3% longevity pay for people employed with the county over 10 years. Some speculation is that the longevity pay will not have a large impact on the budget, but will also not benefit a majority of the staff, as staff retention is a continuing and growing issue in the county. UPEC members, including myself, spoke at the February 21st evening board meeting, which subsequently was the same meeting that the controversial Second Amendment resolution was being considered by the board. Public comment was pushed to the back of the meeting, so union members wishing to speak had to wait over 4 hours to voice their concerns. The union was then informally invited to the following evening meeting on April 18th by District 4 Supervisor and Board Chair Patrick Jones. I say informally because UPEC's contract negotiations were not placed on the board agenda. Union members were simply invited to speak at that meeting during public comment, which this time was up front, most likely a response to the criticisms of disrespect to the union members from the previous meeting that UPEC members attended. After impassioned speeches by numerous UPEC members, Jones issued this statement.
And normally I don't talk about these things out in open session, but I think it's appropriate to do so now. So in this 3-year contract, the same as all the other bargaining units, you're getting a 2.5%, 2.5%, and a 2% plus other equities over the next 3 years. It's not that we don't believe you're worth more. We do believe you're worth more. But it is what we can afford is the problem. Our general fund is only going up. I know you might think that's funny, but we take it seriously. A 1% raise equates to over $1 million forevermore, just 1%. And we're offering on the table 2.5%, 2.5%, 2 plus other equities.
This was seen as tone deaf by union members in attendance. Subsequently, the union swiftly voted to strike for 2 weeks beginning May 1st and ending on May 12th. This vote took place 3 days after this meeting. The county sent out a press release regarding the strike, stating that, quote, county management has plans in place to assure continuity of services to residents and visitors, including public safety, road maintenance, and health and human services. Despite this, the strike has had a palpable effect on services. On a Facebook post, the Shasta County Health and Human Services Facebook page states that due to, quote, staffing shortages, that multiple offices have been closed to the public. The following day, a similar statement was made, except this public post uses the language that it is, quote, due to the county strike, showing that they are publicly acknowledging the disruption in services. I'd like to take a moment to discuss the union's position. The General Unit voted for a 15% increase over 1 year, over double what the county offered over a 3-year period. While to many in the community this may seem like a large number, the union members' logic is based on 3 major factors. The first factor is that the share of costs for medical insurance coverage increased this year.
A 2.5% increase equals $97 more a month, and my health insurance went up $140.
Here's an example of what a 2.5% wage increase looks like for someone who has insurance for their family. As you can see, a 2.5% wage increase amounts to a 7% decrease in the wages they saw in the previous year. The second factor is inflation. Since last year, inflation is at roughly 8% across the board. Union member spending power has drastically been reduced over the last 2 years, and many line staff have difficulty paying for basic necessities.
I have a 2-year-old at home. I look at her every day, and I just cry, because there are people who can't afford to feed their children and have their children in care because of poverty, because of their own issues. And I just want to hug my child. I am scared that I won't be able to put food on the table for her tomorrow. I got paid today, and my account is already negative $200.
The third factor is staff retention. There are over 500 vacancies in the county, which not only puts a lot of stress on the remaining staff, as the workload does not decrease, it exposes a growing issue that the county cannot retain workers with their current compensation.
People have said, how can you care about your clients if you're not even going to work? Well, guess what? Clients that are supposed to get their benefits within 3 days aren't even getting interviewed for 3 weeks because we do not have the staff to do our job.
Vacancies have an additional cost to the county as well. Since many programs in the county are state mandated, programs that are not fully staffed may be in violation of state regulations and could be subject to fines, ultimately costing the county money in the long run. On May 2nd, during the second day of the strike, union members packed the board chambers to speak on an agendized item. The county conducted a public hearing to impose their last best final offer of 2.5% raise for UPEC General members. Since the county is unable to legally impose a contract, a decision to impose a wage increase will only affect this year. After 2 hours of public comment by union and community members, the District 4 Supervisor and Board Chair Patrick Jones reiterated his previous statement made in the April 18th board meeting.
If we overextend ourselves, the result will be loss of employees, which is the last thing we want to do. We also understand you're underpaid, but we have to be cautious as we move forward. There's no other way around it. There are other objectives that this board and the majority of this board want to do that are important. Building a new jail is important to the county. Not sure if we'll be able to do it with the finances and with what's coming. We'd like to. It may or may not happen.
There's quite a bit of hypocrisy in telling union members that the county cannot afford to pay them more, seeing that as of the last few months, many fiscally questionable decisions have been made by this board. I'd like to talk about one of those questionable fiscal decisions. The board voted to put together a plan for a 256 jailbed facility at the cost of $111 million to the county without having the funds to pay for it.
County Council Cruz explained that it would not be subject to a vote. That's with the presumption that it would be paid back out of ongoing county revenues, not any sort of a special financing mechanism. So the money would have to come out of the county general fund. So there is not presently a funding plan for this jail, either to construct it or to operate it.
And that $7 million you said would have to come from the general fund, which would primarily take away from public safety, I would assume, because they receive the lion's share of the general fund money at this point.
By and large.
Yes.
As of 2022, Shasta County's general fund reserves were at $29 million, which is close to best practice, as ensuring we have funds to cover unexpected expenses. Last year, the board voted to take $10 million of reserves out of the general fund.
Last year, the board voted to remove $10 million from the general reserve and place it in the accumulated capital outlay reserve. It did not leave the general fund. It's just going in a different pot of money. It's still there.
Roughly a third of county reserves. A drop in the bucket towards the jail, a $111 million project that will cost us roughly $7 million per year. As discussed in my previous breakdown, the board also voted on canceling the Dominion voting machine contract, which per our registrar of voters is going to have a large financial impact on the county. At a recent meeting, on April 25th, the board voted to add 7 full-time positions to handle the planning for the new hand count-based system to move forward. However, the vote did not come before a series of questions by Supervisor Kevin Cry.
Can you speak to 12.310 in terms of the allowance for stipends and paid poll workers?
I can. Elections Code Section 12.310 provides in part, each member of a precinct board shall receive compensation from the governing body of the jurisdiction. This sum shall be paid out of the treasury of the jurisdiction in which the election is held. At this point, the opinion we've received is that compensation would be at minimum wage.
Opinion from who?
From outside counsel.
Cry was referring to the estimated cost of between $1.4 and $1.7 million of increased costs to taxpayers that each presidential election will be costing us. Cry is essentially arguing against a state law that requires that precinct board members be compensated for their labor. I'd like to add that from the previous meeting with the auditor's presentation, in a particularly telling exchange between Supervisor Mary Rickard and Auditor Controller Nolda Short, they discussed whether there are any funds for this project.
I do want to ask, though, moving forward, because that is my concern moving forward, where's the additional money going to come from that'll cover the costs of all this additional expenses involved with new voting machines and whatever else is in, new building, more staffing to hand count ballots and that kind of thing.
So I think I answered that at the last board meeting.
I know, but I
This
just,
board has to make that decision.
yeah, you did answer that.
There's no revenues coming in to cover it. So, and you can certainly take it from fund balance in year one, but it's not really what that's intended for. You wouldn't want to take it from the reserve.
Now I'd like to discuss the efficacy of the county affording a 15% raise for general unit members. Chair Jones made a statement that even a 1% raise increases the budget $1 million, which is inaccurate. Staff have stated that a 15% raise for the general unit will cost roughly $11 million, but this is somewhat misleading as well. The general unit is majority paid through state-funded programs, to the tune of 70%, with that remaining 30% coming from the general fund. So an $11 million increase to the budget will actually only cost $3.6 million to the general fund. In recent years, we've ended most fiscal years with roughly $8 million additional in reserves. So this isn't a matter of whether or not the county can afford it. It's a matter of priority, and up until this point, the board has shown exactly where its priority lies. It would appear that they would rather pay for an unproven, inefficient, expensive hand count system to the tune of $1.6 million per election. Lastly, I think it's important to say that while in a normal operating year, Shasta County was putting away $8 million on average in the general fund reserves, with staffing shortages to the tune of over 500 employees across the agency, we likely have a surplus within the last 2 years, due to employees leaving and retiring. Some of these vacancies are due to COVID, and others are due to increasing tension within the agency regarding staffing shortages, as well as the political atmosphere. Good people are leaving. At this time, I would like to share this link for the GoFundMe for UPEC General. If you'd like to support the union, please consider donating to the union, or share this link with a friend. The funds will be used to ensure that staff striking for living wages are compensated while they are striking without pay from the county. In solidarity, that's the breakdown.